Hey everybody, my name is Paul Fuzinski, and I am the creator of Wild Man in the Woods YouTube channel and the show Wild Man Mysteries that we just recently put out. And I'm here with my good friend Chester Moore talking about something that is in the cryptozoological realm, and that is Black Panthers. So the first question I have for you, Chester, is are there Black Panthers in America, and what are they?
Man, that's a deep question right there, and it opens it right up, doesn't it? So, when people see what they call a black panther on television, or they see an animal in a zoo they relate as a black panther, they are seeing one of two things. They are seeing a black jaguar or a black leopard. It's called melanism. It's a hyper amount of black pigment. And so a perfectly normal orangish yellow leopard will give birth sometimes to a black offspring. Same thing happens with jaguars. So the Black Panthers known throughout the world in history have been those now. The problem is there are no indigenous leopard populations in America, and there have been isolated jaguar populations returning to America in New Mexico and Arizona, verified. But people are reporting seeing Black Panthers. Number one, that's what a Black Panther is historically, and we can verify. Number two, there is no such species as a Black Panther. There is no credible wildlife field guide where you open a page and it says Black Panther, right? That is not a species. It is a variation, what we know of is a variation of a leopard or a jaguar. So that goes into all these thousands and thousands of reports of people in America and Canada, but mainly America, saying that they saw a black panther, which I get almost on a daily basis here through a highercalling.net blog. I believe people are seeing things. I'm getting photos sent to me, but it's not what people think. I think there are many answers to what a black panther is.
So on a, side note, we're both very much into wildlife. We both write about wildlife. We both have, podcasts about wildlife and things of that nature. And we know a common animal that we know 100% exists here in North America is the cougar, the mountain lion, whatever you want to call it. So is there a such thing as a black mountain lion or cougar or whatever you regionally call this animal?
The majority of the people who send in reports of black panthers think they are seeing a black cougar or mountain lion. I'm going to call them cougar. That's what I've always called them. But cougar, mountain lion, puma, panther, catamount, those are all references. As a matter of fact, I've heard catamount, it's from Canada, but I actually saw a Catamount Valley recently in Colorado. So apparently they were using it in Colorado. But is that the source of Black Panther sightings? I'm going to say this straight up front. I do not believe that there are black mountain lions, black cougars. I do not believe there are black cougars. And here is why. The cougar is one of the most documented animals in North America. They live globally in zoos. They have a range from Canada down to Argentina. There are thousands in captive populations. There are thousands legally harvested and brought to taxidermists and game department check stations a year, and there's never been a single black specimen brought in. There have been a couple of white specimens. One was born in a zoo. There was another one captured on a game camera in Brazil. But as far as I know, there's never been a verified black cougar. So for all of these thousands of reports to be a black cougar doesn't seem realistic to me. Because if this is what it was, they'd be popping up clearly in front of game cameras. They'd be killed by hunters. They'd be born in zoos and captive populations. So I do not believe black cougars are what people are seeing out there. Is it a vague possibility? Yes, but it just doesn't make sense for all these reports, or even most, to be a black cougar, because we don't have them popping up anywhere else where they would pop. And the other part of that is, I think some people are seeing cougars and thinking they're a black panther, but they're seeing grayish, kind of like that brownish gray colored cougar in low light conditions, and dark chocolatey sort of brown colors in low light conditions, or even in high light conditions where the sun's sitting at a certain angle and you really can't tell the color, and they're actually mistaking it for a black panther. So no, I do not believe cougars are the source, the primary source at least, of the Black Panther phenomenon.
Another common thing people talk about is jaguars. We know
Yeah.
jaguars at one point were, historically their
Yep.
range did go into southern United States,
Mhm.
but probably not so much anymore. And then they are, historically found throughout South America and Mexico and places like that. So do you think maybe that's what people are seeing?
I think it's part of the equation. I think it's a very viable part of the equation. For example, we know that we have had verified jaguars in Arizona and in New Mexico. As a matter of fact, I was at Chiracahua National Monument photographing Gould's turkeys 3 years ago, and there was a jaguar sighting and captured on a game camera by federal officials at Chiracahua National Monument. These are standard color jaguars, your orangish yellow jaguar. There haven't been any verified melanistic coming across the border. But jaguars lived all the way into Louisiana at one point. As a matter of fact, Sam Houston, who was considered the forefather of Texas, when John James Audubon and Richard Bachman spoke to him, he said, quote, there were many jaguars east of the San Jacinto River. And I live east of the San Jacinto River. There's a sliver of Texas there, about an hour and a half. I live in that. I do believe that we know there were jaguars. There was a jaguar brought into the Jasper County, an hour north of me courthouse in 1902. A jaguar was brought and killed in East Texas, a little over, 120 years ago. So we have a history. And interestingly, I learned a few years back that melanism can be a dominant trait in jaguars. So if it pops up, it can actually be a dominant trait. So you could have a remnant population of black jaguars. I have in all of my investigations in Texas, there's 2 jaguar reports in Texas that I believe for sure were jaguars. That people told me credible hunters saw these animals, but they weren't reporting seeing a black one. They're reporting seeing an orangish, standard jaguar. In Louisiana, I had a guy reach out to me and say, "Hey, Chester, I was hunting the Sabine National Wildlife Refuge duck hunting, and I saw a jaguar swim across a levee and get up, and shake all the water off of it." And I'm like, I'm so used to getting Black Panther reports that I thought he was giving me another Black Panther report. Hold on, my dog's doing something stupid. Hawkeye, quit. Sit. Get down, boy. Thank you, buddy. Okay. All right. So I'm going to do that whole story again, okay? So I had a reader reach out to me and say he was hunting the Sabine National Wildlife Refuge, which is about 30, 35 miles, the interior of it, east of me. And he said he was duck hunting and he saw this jaguar swim across a canal and get up and shake itself on the levee. And I'm so used to getting Black Panther reports that I'm assuming he's talking about a black cat. He goes, no, like just a regular jaguar. And then I had someone explain to me seeing a large black cat, and within probably 15 miles of that spot, he saw his on some farmland, some ranch land, and they saw a black cat at night against the fence line, and it turned. They could see the spots on the coat, which you can actually see the spots are still there. So I think there probably have been a few black jaguars, but there is no way all of these reports across America are jaguars running around America in Kansas, in Virginia, and everywhere else. I just don't see that is the source of it, because guess what happens? Jaguars, where they're incredibly rare, like coming through New Mexico, coming through Arizona, show up on game camera. They show up. They're not evading game camera. They're showing up. So if these were all, or the majority of sightings were black jaguars, I do believe we would have a lot better reports. But I do believe there have been a few reports, so there probably are. You're talking animals that have a large, large home range, and I could see there being a few jaguars. I believe that's part of the cycle. And I have on my Chester Moore Wildlife Journalist and Investigator YouTube channel, you can see me ranking. I have 7 videos about each of these we're going to talk about, and one of them I rank all of them from 7 to 1, what I consider are part of the Black Panther equation. So I even consider dogs part of it. People seeing dogs at a distance and thinking they're seeing some kind of a cat. So I know I'm making a lot of people angry saying that, because I'm not picking on you. This is just what we can verify.
And I think, one more animal that people are much less familiar with is the jaguarundi. They kind of
Yeah.
have a similar native range to the jaguar, but they're a little bit different of an animal. So why don't you talk about the jaguarundi as possibly another potential sighting for black panthers?
Yeah, Don Zeidel, the late editor-in-chief of Texas Fish and Game, before I was editor-in-chief, asked if I thought, 20-something years ago, if jaguarundis could be part of the deal. And then I end up seeing a jaguarundi about 300 miles, 250 miles north of their accepted range in Texas. And I didn't go, oh, it's a black panther. It crossed the road in front of me at about 10 or 15 yards, went, oh, wow, jaguarundi. Went slammed on my brakes. Oh, my God, it's a jaguarundi. I had photographed them in captivity, so I knew intimately what they looked like. And I contacted a Texas Parks and Wild biologist at the time who verified to me, and I ran this in stories. You can read this. There's still a story up at the Anomalist called Are U.S. Panthers Jaguarundis? It's still out there. And I quote him in that story saying that there were jaguarundis in the area. And there was a study done in the late 60s, early 70s. There were so many jaguarundi reports in Brazoria County, Texas, which is between Houston and Galveston. And that's way north of the Mexico line where people think there still might be jaguarundis in Texas. They are a long, up to 52 inches, but usually probably 36 to 40 inch from nose to tip of tail, kind of short cat. They come in two main color phases, dark gray, or a kind of a reddish brown color. And most are that dark gray color. And if someone doesn't have any idea of what they're looking at, and they see this cat that's 40 plus inches long at a distance with the tail long as the body, and it's dark gray, looks black in the light, I have a feeling that that's going to end up being a black panther to people. And I think that is definitely part of the equation. My friend Michael Mays is a great black panther researcher. And I think we differentiate. We've talked about, he leans more jaguar. I lean more jaguar, and it could be either one. We both believe they're part of the equation. But I think Michael's more on the jaguar side. I'm a little bit more on the jaguarundi side. But Michael has an incredible book out on the phenomenon, and I highly recommend people buying it because he's an integral guy who has done a ton of research on it. And believe it or not, for some reason, he quoted me in it, which is really crazy. But Michael's a great guy, and he talks about jaguarundi as well. They are. And there's rumors of someone who had captive jaguarundis in Florida and that they let them all loose, because there are tons of jaguarundi reports in Florida. My good friend Jim Broadus operates Bear Creek Feline Center in Panama City, has a couple of jaguarundis there. And he is someone who's investigated these old reports of these escaped or let loose jaguarundis. And he believes that there are definitely populations of jaguarundis in Florida.
So the final and the biggest question is, what do you think is the number one candidate that people are mistaking for black panthers here in the United States?
I think number one, there's definitely a number one with a bullet, but there's kind of a 1 and 1A. And in my video series, I did it 1 and 2. So I'm going to start with 2 or 1A. And I have identified this about 10 years ago, what I call the black longtail. These are domestic origin cats that are growing to larger sizes than most people think. And they have extra long tails. I'm not sure if this is adaptation in the wild from all the millions of feral cats, but there have been feral cats killed and captured in Australia that are like 40 pounds, really huge cats. And I get a lot of photos of cats that are extra big compared to your normal house cat. Definitely of domestic origin. My friend Jeff Stewart, a researcher, got a game cam photo of one of these. I've gotten a game cam photo of 2 of these now. And they have extra long tails. And I think that is probably way up there as Black Panther candidate, because I know I've seen cats. I'm like, that is not a mountain lion, that's not a jaguarundi, and that's definitely not a jaguar, right? Number one, and this is where people get upset, feral house cats. Out of 300, let's say, photos and videos sent to me, I would say 220 are probably clearly domestic house cats. People are saying they can't judge scale. And look, I'm not knocking people at all. I mean, not everyone, it's hard to judge scale. You're not expecting to see a black cat in the wild somewhere, but there are millions of feral cats in America, and a lot of them are black. And I think that's the number one thing. I don't necessarily, if you're watching, that yours was a feral cat. There's a bunch of categories I'm open to here. But from what I've seen, the most common is the feral house cat, and then these weird, large, extra, like feral domestic strain house cats that are bigger than normal, and they have these really long tails that I identified in my Texas guide to a field guide to wildcats you can buy on Amazon as the black longtail. And I think those two make up the majority of the sightings.
So are you currently soliciting reports on
Yes.
black cats and black panthers, and where can people reach out to you to give you these reports?
I'm always looking for reports, and I will never belittle you for your reports. I will give you my honest opinion. If you don't agree, that's fine, but I appreciate you bringing this information. We can have a better understanding of what's running around North America. And you can email me at chester@chestermoore.com. That is Chester@chestermoore.com.